This chart illustrates a modern paradox. As income scales up, net worth often remains stagnant or sinks negative. Earning more rarely bridges this gap without a system to capture energy. A high salary acts as an isolated gear, lacking the mechanism to build momentum. Increasing the volume of money through a broken pipe only amplifies the leak. Earning a higher salary does nothing to fix the underlying vulnerability of poor capital allocation. In 1926, George S. Clason published The Richest Man in Babylon. These parables function as a timeless framework for capital accumulation, operating with the precision of a mathematical ledger. By reverse engineering the laws embedded in these ancient stories, we can construct a first principles model for building wealth. Wealth results from the reliable execution of an engineered system, rather than the size of a paycheck. Ancient Babylon was a city built from nothing but mud and river water. Its immense riches were the product of systems engineering applied over centuries. The model begins with Arkad, a humble scribe who asked a wealthy moneylender to explain the specific laws he followed to build his holdings. The answer provided the foundation for the entire system. A part of all I earn is mine to keep. Without constraints, necessary expenses naturally expand to consume total liquidity. This trend, known as Parkinson's law, is the primary driver of lifestyle creep. A valve strictly diverts 10% of gross capital into a secure vault. The remaining 90% flows to expenses. This makes the true cost visible. If rent consumes half your income, you work 20 hours a week exclusively for your landlord. This realization forces a distinction between operational survival and manufactured desires. It shifts the focus from status-driven consumerism back to the system's health. The 10% extraction functions as a hard constraint, forcing efficiency onto the remaining 90% of the budget. Once captured, that 10% is deployed as an active, autonomous workforce. The system requires that the operator never eat the yield. Clason illustrates this through Agar the shieldmaker, who invested his savings but immediately spent the dividends on wine and tunics, destroying the workforce before it could replicate. For the system to grow, the principal must generate a yield, and that yield must be immediately put back to work to generate its own children. The difference is stark. Saving $10,000 a year over 30 years produces a total of $300,000. But reinvesting that input at an average 8% return creates an exponential curve, resulting in over 1.1 million. This treats capital as a tireless workforce that never sleeps, never gets sick, and never quits. A growing capital engine faces constant external shocks. Babylon survived because its massive stone walls were engineered and fortified before invading armies arrived. The 5 laws of gold serve as the city walls for the system, establishing parameters for risk management. The law of expertise highlights the danger of trusting those outside their field. When Arkad gave his savings to a brickmaker to buy jewels, he lost everything to counterfeiters. Proximity to an opportunity does not mean the operator is competent. In modern terms, this means ignoring financial advice from inexperienced relatives or trend-chasing influencers and relying only on proving operators. The architecture also defends against the impossible return. Nomasir lost his inheritance betting on rigged horse races, lured by the promise of rapid multiplication with zero effort. Any scheme promising massive, rapid returns without risk is structurally predatory. If the logic fails to hold up to scrutiny, the capital allocation is likely a trap. These Babylonian walls translate today into emergency cash reserves and insurance policies. These defenses must be active before a crisis begins. Defending the principle is as critical as growth. A single catastrophic loss can reset decades of compounding. When liabilities overwhelm the system, the Dabasir method provides a protocol for recovery. It begins by meticulously mapping every outstanding debt. This recovery algorithm allocates 70% of income to living expenses and 20% to creditors. Crucially, the final 10% still flows to the wealth engine, keeping the system active even during a crisis. Stability requires distinguishing between assets and liabilities. A gold-adorned chariot is a resource-draining liability, while a simple rented chariot is a yield-generating asset. The most common failure in this stage is learned helplessness. Past financial errors can condition the brain to accept debt as a permanent state, leading to total inaction. Arkad recalls a farmer who hesitated until morning to buy a discounted flock of sheep, losing the deal to buyers who acted instantly. This demonstrates that luck is often the byproduct of a system that maximizes exposure to positive value opportunities and acts on them immediately. Willpower is best defined as the unflinching adherence to a small system. Arkad illustrated this by resolving to throw one pebble into the river every day, a task he completed without debate, regardless of its simplicity. Even the best architecture is useless without an operator. Consistent execution is what transforms intent into a tangible outcome. Once the engine is stable, the final lever is widening the input pipe. This is achieved by investing in specialized skills, increasing the baseline income. The completed Babylonian wealth engine operates with all nodes in tandem: forced savings, exponential compounding, defensive walls, and capped expenses. This architecture is not designed for pathological frugality. The objective is not to hoard capital in a vault until death. The core dichotomy is the target of the capital. Consumers buy depreciating liabilities, while systems owners buy back their time. Ultimately, wealth is the quantity of time one can sustain without a paycheck, secured by the architecture of the system.